thank you, Robert, for being here. Everybody, for those who don't know, Robert is the founder of Madhu Sushi, um, which is a restaurant that has a series of locations around Michigan. And today we're going to be talking about what it was like starting the company, some conflicts that have happened in that company, and the general structure. So yeah, Robert, thank you very much for being here today.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Um, so I guess I'll just jump right into the questions. What is your technically, like, what is your background? Where did you go to school, and what were you interested in before starting Madhu?
I am a Spartan. I went to Michigan State as an undergrad. I grew up in Chicago area, went to a small school in suburb of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was an aspiring physician, but I didn't get good enough grades, and I just didn't like the prospects of having to train for 2 decades. And I am not the most patient person. So I decided to switch major to dietetics. That's what I've majored in. And instead of going to a clinical field and working at a hospital, I pursued a food service. Um, my first food service experience was a MSUEA dormitory, as a matter of fact. So I did that for about a year. Slew a few jobs here and there, but I have worked, seems like most of my life as a son of immigrant. Um, and I started working at a restaurant while in college, and that led me to find my calling.
And so, at what point did you? Well, actually, I guess I want to go from broader scale. So, like, what is the current mission statement of uh, Madhu Sushi?
Our company mission statement is bringing positive change to those we serve.
And as the founder, what role do you play in doing that?
Currently, it's about sharing our core values. Um, there are a number of core values that we try to instill. There are reasons, uh, there are factors that got us here so far, and we believe in those core values that it will get us to where we wish to go in the next decade. So, really, my job is to repeating those core values to bring everybody together.
Gotcha. So what type of I remember you mentioned you've been like in food service for a while, but at what point did you decide that, hey, you wanted to start a store of your own?
Mm, I was a typical college a student who was somewhat disillusioned and somewhat aimless as to what I need to do in life. There are a few things that I knew I wouldn't want to become, but it was rather lost. You know, do you go to just grad school and keep studying to get a job, or what do you do?
Mhm.
And while I was working part time at a restaurant, and it was just a job, literally was just a part-time job. Then I started to understand the dynamics of small business. Initially, since I have been in the small business as a son of immigrant, it wasn't something that attracted me. It was just a lot of work. There wasn't much vision, a lot of repetition. Then I'm a late bloomer and I didn't really study a lot in school, but I believe in learning. I picked up a book by Michael Dell. He is the founder of Dell Computers. Um, and he started his business in a dorm room, then a small shop, then a little larger shop, then a small warehouse, then a larger warehouse, then became a big company. Then the rest is history. I believe was the youngest Fortune 500 CEO and the founder in the history of America. Because by the time he was 40, I think he ranked close to 10th in United States with his assets. So I studied looking at the small business in a different angle as opposed to it's a place where you just go to work in the morning and go home at night, come home at night, work 6 days, no break, into something that, hey, you can actually turn a small business into a flourishing mid-sized, perhaps even larger one if you have the right product, good people, and working process in place. So that book challenged me to look deeper into the opportunity that I was in, and that really piqued my interest, and I started digging deeper.
So, were you reading this book, and by digging deeper, I'm assuming that you mean, that inspired you to start thinking about starting this company. And so, in this period of time, were you still working at the MSU dormitories? And
So uh, then I started working at a local Japanese a steakhouse
Mhm.
as a chef, and I was attending MSU part time.
I see. And then, did this give you like some vision as to how the steakhouse that was being run could be improved? Like, what made you decide to start your own company rather than working your way up? And we call it like being an entrepreneur, where you're innovating from within a company.
Yes. The real vision came a bit later, but what I have discovered by digging deeper was something that I could do and do well.
Mhm.
So I saw the successes that my owners back then were having and how I helped them get there. But I knew that I was far from being ready to start something of my own. There are
Mhm.
a bunch of things that I just lacked, resources and experience to do.
Mhm.
So I kind of deviated and I thought of going back to school and took an LSAT, stuff that usually, by the fourth year in college, you're trying to figure your life out. And it's not easy for a lot of people. Um, my wife was a great student and she got a job in San Francisco before she graduated. And, she was working over there as a designer. But me, on the other hand, I am not an academia by any means. I like stuff, practical things. And at university level, professors are not equipped to tell you the practicality of life and certainly in business, because that's not what their specialty is often.
Mhm.
So I was introduced to a new position by one of my good friends who introduced me to a business person who's about to start a Japanese steakhouse. And I was recruited to become a manager there. And I
Mhm.
worked for that company for just over 7 years. And during which time I learned um, the skills, I've learned the trade, I have experienced, because I literally did everything a restaurant has to offer.
Mhm.
And a step at a time, I have gained experience and some of the resources. And I literally planned and try to visualize what my business would be like when I would be ready to start something of my own.
So, when you were transitioning to becoming a manager, was there anything that was really shocking or surprising to you?
Not really. I have worked most of my life. So, say, you know how there are three things that people don't want to do, and that is work that is difficult, dangerous, and dirty.
Mhm.
And I didn't mind doing any dirty work. I don't mind doing things that's deemed dangerous, and if it's difficult, I take it as challenge. But I do have to say that starting a restaurant from the scratch when there's no process, that
Mhm.
was very challenging. But before I took that job, a good friend of mine who was much older than me, he was the general manager of what is now Hall of Fame Cafe. asked me if I'm walking into an established restaurant as a manager or something else. And I said, well, there is no restaurant. We have to build it. He advised me that if that's the case, I would go. Because if you walk into an establishment where they are going to tell you exactly what to do, then you will just be doing the tasks
Right.
that they need me to accomplish. But if it's just blank page of nothing, then that experience will equip um, me to do greater things. And that advice was invaluable, and it has proven to be true.
I want to quickly insert that we're open to questions and welcome any questions if anybody has any. I forgot to mention that at the very beginning. Um, so yeah, feel free to throw them in the chat or the Q&A and we'll address them as we go, unless you'd prefer to do it at the end. But yeah, and so next question is about going in. So I read on your website that you met somebody called Chef Moon Yang that was really helpful in like starting this business. What role did he play, and yeah, how did you meet him?
He's my founding chef. He's my executive chef. He's been with me along the way. He's the one who made my food beautiful and delicious to this day.
Mhm.
I met him through my sensei. So there was two Japanese gentlemen who taught me the sushi part of um, the culinary experience. And he worked with me for, I believe, about 4 or 5 years or so. And he moved back to Tennessee to start his own restaurant. So a few months into it, I visited him, at his restaurant, and he showed me around the town of Knoxville, Tennessee,
Mhm.
and took me to one of the more popular spots in Tennessee, Knoxville, should say.
Mhm.
Then he was the executive chef there. So I loved their cuisine. I loved his energy and the passion that he brings.
Mhm.
So we introduced each other, exchanged um, information, the contact information. The company was going through some changes as the owner was getting ready to sell the business. So timing worked out. He ended up coming up here, and we opened Maru Sushi about 11 years ago.
Let's see. Looks like we have a question, and it kind of ties to what we were just talking about. Um, well, first of all, Maru Sushi is my favorite restaurant. How did you come up with the unique menu? Was there anything special that you did? It looks like you're muted.
I am here. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all right. Looks like your video's frozen. Um, maybe that's just me though. Can everyone else see him all right? Hello?
I'm here.
All right, I can hear and see you now. Um, odd. Okay, looks like, well, if somebody would confirm that everybody's able to hear and see, then I think we would be all right. Just say like yes or something. All right, sweet. Um, so yeah, we left off on this question. It's how did you come up with the unique menu, and was there anything special that you did?
Well, over about 10 years of me working for other people, I have gained experience on my own.
Mm.
In the last 7 or 8 years, of which was 6 years of me being married. We traveled extensively, at least throughout the United States, and we went to places and we tasted their food. Sometimes we would ask the paper menus, and I would collect all the resources possible.
Mhm.
So we've done our benchmarking and researching to see what um, we should offer when the time comes and open my restaurant. So it's a lot of time um, dedicated to coming up with a menu. But Chef Moon played a pivotal role because he's the expert in this field more so than my experience as a chef. So he's the one who put it together. I have more of a traditional background from the sensei that I had, and his sensei was more. There's a flair to his their food, so to speak.
Gotcha. Um, so what are the necessary steps to opening a restaurant? Like a lot must be in place in order to have a functioning system. For example, like employees, you have to have like employees that are ready to work regular hours, and you have to know where you're going to source the food from. Like not to mention owning a location. How did you go from working for somebody else to having all of these things and then doing it sustainably? Well, that was
That question will probably require 2 full days because we have to cover real estate, we have to cover banking, we have to cover HR, we have to cover um, food service operation, because that alone is going to be an hour. But to simply put,
Mhm.
work for a progressive company and work it as you own it.
Mhm.
So I often tell young entrepreneurs or those who want to do something of their own, say a restaurant, instead of working for money, as in, well, this is a job that pays me $5,000 a month, so I just do $5,000 worth of work, then you're just mediocre. Not sure if you're ready to become an owner. If you want to own something of your own and want to be successful, then you have to work as if you actually own it. Meaning, um, at first, just like doctors, they work 16-hour shift for days on ends. There's so much to learn and not enough time. Am I losing you again?
I can hear.
Oh boy, am I losing you again?
Oh yeah, it looks like
Can you hear me?
dipping out a bit. I can hear
Can you
you,
hear me?
but you're frozen.
Okay. So it's about the dedication, commitment, perseverance,
Mm.
and what your pain tolerance is. So, if you've experienced as much as you can in a short period of time, in my case, it took me just about 10 years of working at a restaurant before I felt comfortable enough to start off my own. And I believe I owe it to that experience, 10 years, uh, difficult 10 years for working for other people, have equipped me, prepared me to take on the steps necessary to stay in business. Because that's when you learn by getting paid. Because once you start something of your own, then you're on your own. There's nothing protecting you. The money that you get isn't guaranteed. And I see so many people in the food service where the barrier to entry is relatively low. In other words, if you want to do it, if you have some money to do it, if you're crazy enough to sign the lease, and now you have a cookie company or a taco shop or coffee shop or whatever, and they go out of business within just a few years. And oftentimes they just lack one thing, and that is they don't know the business quite yet. So I will tell you that some people approach me and go, "Wow, you're great because you." I've heard the failure rate in restaurant business is so high. I don't think it's because the restaurant business is any tougher, but the the barrier to entry is low. How many times do you see like a dentist office going out of business? You don't really see that because they're smart enough to get into dental school. They finish their training, and you don't just become a dentist because you have the passion and money to open a dentistry shop. But in food business, at least in a simpler version, you can. You can just open up a pasta shop because you like cooking, but what do you know anything about Italian cuisine? Perhaps very little. And those restaurants don't have enough competitive edge to stay above the competition to stay on. So to answer your question, first and foremost, put yourself in a progressive company where you can dedicate your time and learn as much as you can. That usually means it's a smaller company because if you work for Darden, no, you're not going to learn about the food business. They're going to put you as you are this department and just do that because they have I don't think they're going to be able to train you. But if you are in a smaller restaurant setting, where I did literally everything. I was the general manager, but I worked as a sushi chef, hibachi chef. I did, marketing. I did kitchen managing. Yeah, just whole nine yard. So if you wish to say own a restaurant, then be in a company where you have a chance to do as much as possible so that you can learn as much as possible and have a luxury of making mistakes while getting paid. Because if you're an owner and make a mistake, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that mistake in a short while, then it gets pretty challenging.
Yeah, I like how you framed it as the barrier to entry is very low, and it's not necessarily that it's so much harder. It's just easier to do it without knowing what it is that you're getting yourself into. Um,
Right.
I'd be interested to hear your opinion. Somebody once told me to like never pass up an opportunity. Do you agree or disagree with that, the type of advice?
Depends on what kind of opportunity.
Yeah.
So my question then to you is, what's the opportunity cost?
Right.
So if there is a $50,000 car, a very nice one, but it's worth 70, well, it's an opportunity, right? But do you buy it? I don't know. So we run into those things all the time. It's just that uh, do the opportunities align with your unique ability? What is it that you do well? What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you put effort to? And if those opportunities align with unique ability that you have, then I think decision is a little easier. And are you ready to do it? Are you ready to take on that challenge? That's a secondary question.
Gotcha. Um, Looks like we're breaking up again for a second here. And as soon as it's over, then I think it would be interesting to talk about the mistake that you referred to. Um, and basically, there was like a class action lawsuit. And well, I'd just like to walk through what that was, like why it happened, and yeah, like your opinion on it. So, looks like you're back, and um, if I'm correct, there was an issue with adding a 10% service fee to transactions of like the food that you were selling. Um, is that what was happening? You added like a 10% transaction, or your 10% service fee um, every time you sold food in order to compensate the chefs as well as the waiters. Um, or what exactly was that? Uh, okay, this is new.
Are we back on?
Yes, sir. Um, yeah, all right. So would you mind discussing with me like what exactly um, the mistake was? And yeah, I'd like to hear your side of what happened.
Okay. Um, when you grow, there's a liability just because you're just dealing with a lot of people. Um, Looking back, some of those things could have been prevented, but as the company grew, you can't possibly do everything right um, as far as compliances are concerned. So I neglected the the HR side of the business because I am not an expert in HR. I took one class while I was in school at Michigan State, and I was late hiring an HR manager who would bring in some of the expertise. Even then, as a small company, smaller company, you just don't know everything that you should know. Usually bigger companies, they have slew of industry experts to shield themselves that understands the laws and policies, changing laws and policies. So when I was dealing with this, my attorney would say, "Oh my gosh, you are primed for you're primed for a lawsuit because you're exactly the right size." Those uh, those attorneys who are looking for opportunities to make easy money to sue because they don't go after big companies because they'll lose. They don't go after small companies because there's no money.
Right.
But I was just the right company for them to be lucrative in starting something like this. However, I'm not saying that I am not at fault. So the issue, the question is hours and wages. So there are specific ways that one had to be paid, but uh, I wasn't fully aware of the rules. Therefore, I did it the way I was treated well when I was working for other people. That proved to be wrong. So I'll give you some examples. If you're a chef, um, most of the times you cannot be on a salary. And according to the labor law, because now I know because I became a semi-expert on this thing, you had to graduate from 4-year culinary school, not 2 years, 4-year culinary school, in order for you to be a chef and be on a salary. Otherwise, in order for you to be on a salary, you have to do something other than working as a chef with hands. So you have to be doing managerial work. So you can be a manager and be on a salary, but you can't be a chef and be on a salary, even if some of the work they share, so some of the aspects of their work is the same, like hiring or inventory or training, um, or working on schedules, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a chef, if you don't do 50% or more of work on, like say, sit down at a desk, for example, you can't get paid. And that was my argument of, so why can't my chef,
Mm.
who's considered an expert, be on a salary? And they couldn't really give me an answer. They just say it's the law.
Right.
Well, so, it's one of those laws that I wasn't aware of. Therefore, when I put them on a salary and then when they work overtime, of course, we would agree that we would pay them that additional hours over 40 hours as time and a half. Um, the Department of Labor wouldn't regard that as valid under the eyes of the law. Unfortunate, but that's the law.
So,
And has it always been like that? No, sometimes it's illegal, sometimes it is not, but for the time being, it is illegal. So there's one. Another part was tip sharing. That's when that 10% comes in. So tip sharing is unique to United States, mostly. Other countries do, but not as widely as we do here in the United States. The recipient needs to get it. So if you are a server, you happen to get it, or if you are the point of contact person, then you're the one who would get it. In many cases, you would share the tips, but there are certain people that were not supposed to get it. But we had our own house rule where it would be fair for us to share it, and again, they found that to be illegal. And so that those two were the main issues.
Gotcha. So just to reiterate, it was providing a salary to the chefs with only 2 years of experience rather than four, and tip pooling um, in in like a way that contradicted the law.
Yeah, it's a again, if we're gonna go really deeper into that, it's gonna take a whole lot more. The lesson here is everybody who intend to start a business, there come a point because we're just heavy on people. At my highest pre-COVID, I had over 460 people.
Mhm.
So few dollars here and there, it becomes a huge liability for me. So now I understand it. But when I was smaller, there were other things that I was more concerned about, like quality of food and timing, et cetera, than hours and wages, to see if it is compliant to the law. You know, because it's weird because on the media it would be reported as I failed to pay overtime and the minimum wage because in order for me to not get there, I just have to pay people the hourly. If I pay people hourly, they would get about the same money uh, and overtime on an hourly basis, as opposed to calculate the whole thing and pay them a lump sum. Because most chefs would rather be on the full time salary than hourly, having to clock in and clock out. And the tip sharing wise, if you work in the back of the house, it makes sense on a busier days that you get paid more like other people. But once you do that, you can do that as long as you pay your service staff the minimum wage. But since I didn't, then it's reported as that I didn't pay the minimum wage, as if I've hired somebody and ended up paying them $5 or $6. That is not the case. You can't do business like that. So there is some unfortunate misinformation that is out, but it's somewhat complicating a business that I just want all of you to realize that as the business grows, especially hours and wages part is something that you got to keep in mind and do it properly.
So was this happening while you were still planning to expand to multiple other locations, or
Yeah, we've expanded pretty consistently.
did this impact that at all?
I can't say it didn't because it wasted a lot of time because you have to bring up all these records for the past 2, 3 years. It's stressful to figure out what needs to be done, but the reality is we are a better company because of it. We've learned, and you know, we were more responsible in that manner. It brought more bureaucracy, if you will, because as a small business owner, I didn't want to become a big company where you see it as company grows. Before anything, they make you sign everything, they make you give you a waiver on everything, all those things. And I proud myself in that we stay small.
Mm.
But before I realized we weren't small, so we had to comply to all these rules.
Gotcha.
So it was a necessary lesson.
Right.
And as company grows, a small and large, a threat of lawsuit is always looming. You just have to understand that the risk is there, and once something happens, then you got to learn from it, because
Mm-hmm.
it is tough. It is tough mentally because there's nobody else to blame but me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that again, on the media, you know, I am portrayed, or the company is portrayed as a villain, as to like we literally screwed people up by not giving them minimum wage or overtime, which is not the case. Um, so that is unfortunate. But we kept on. We knew what got us here, and we had a very solid, loyal customer base. So it's you know, it's difficult to understand for many who don't understand the law, but it is necessary for, I think, almost all big enough organizations go through some sort of a lawsuit one way or another, because it exposes their weakness, and it gives them chance to get stronger.
So like moving forward, and also like before, I guess, did the relationship between you and employees change?
I don't think so. There were a few who, I mean, it was two ways. So chefs were asking why they are no longer on salary, and I would explain. Well, they're telling us it is illegal, but why? I couldn't explain other than the fact that it's the law,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're a manager, if you're my kitchen manager, and you're on a salary, and all of a sudden, okay, yeah, oh yeah, now you have to clock in and out, but almost like a demotion. So there was that.
Mm.
But on the other side, some people um, you know, uh, did see some problems with tip sharing, and I understood it. But largely, say like people didn't quit because, with change, it's not like some people made more money. It's not like I made more money prior or after. We just switched from one way of doing business to another. It's just that one's regarded as illegal and one's regarded as fair. Often labor laws and HR related compliances are exactly that.
That's understandable, and it's good to hear that you weren't like the company wasn't so much negatively impacted as it was able to learn from that and grow. And it sounds like it made you a lot stronger. So props for that. And I'm wondering about the relationship that you have with the customers. You mentioned that there were a lot of loyal customers, and I wonder, like, have you done anything to promote that relationship or help maintain it over the years?
As a company,
Yes.
that's what we do every day. We serve pre-COVID about 800,000 people a year. So we were in the cusp of serving 1 million people a year. So serving customers is what we do. That's what we're good at. So whether it is through communicating through social media, taking care of people who are at the restaurant throughout the day, throughout the week, um, getting their feedback, always trying to figure out what they're looking for, and if we're doing it right.
Mm.
So being proactive and initiating those conversations have been in the core of our business.
And finally, this is my last question actually, is uh, how has COVID impacted the business?
They say through crisis, through a major crisis, bad companies fail, good companies survive,
Mm.
and excellent companies, they improve. We want it to be the excellent company that improves. So when it first happened, it was okay. What the heck is going on? And initially, I'll admit that I thought it was going to be okay, whatever, in a month or so, and we're going to be back on the business. Obviously, that didn't happen, and we immediately went on a to-go only business, and we were operating at about half the revenues that we're used to. We had to lay off a bunch of people. We had to come up with um, compressed menu,
Mm.
compressed hours. Meanwhile, a lot of customers still kept on coming despite the fact that it was just carry out only.
Mm.
So we did that for about 4 months or so. And a few months ago, when we were allowed to open our dining room at 50% capacity until now we're operating at 70%. And now, while the revenue has, we're running just about 60% revenue year to year, and we're running about 70% now these days. Um, we found ways to really dig deep and find efficiency. So we're on the black. We've the real leaders arose. And we're really looking forward to keeping on track of our 10-year plan. We communicate more than ever. Mostly it's Zoom, but we get on our regular calls and meetings, and we're running really, really efficient operations, and we're looking forward to the rest of this year in 2021. And COVID will go, it will go away. At the end of the day, we're lucky to be where we are living and where we're living, because in the past, when something like this hit, whether it is depression or economic or health-wise, I mean, literally people died, much more so um, than this. So thanks to modern convenience, that we largely stay safer than, say, decades, if not centuries ago. So I hope to get out of this so we can be a bit free, but I think time will take care of that.
Well, um, I certainly would also love to be out of the pandemic. And for closing, I think I lied. I actually have one more question, and you probably get it like a million times a day. It's if you were to go to Maru Sushi right now, if I were to go, what should I order? What's your favorite thing on the menu?
There are a number of things that I myself prepared, Chef Moon has prepared, and some of the chefs have prepared for me. It's memorable. My phone has, I don't know, like 9,000 photos of food, I think. As far as menu items are concerned, the one that Chef Moon made me, um, one of the first things that he made me, and something that subsequently I always order when I go to my restaurant, is mahalo.
Oh,
Uh, Mahalo has crunchy shrimp and avocado inside, and it's topped with yellowtail, and it's served with pineapple salsa, fresh pineapples with pico de gallo that we make in the house. So it's refreshing, it's light, it's healthy,
mhm.
um, and it's flavorful. So I enjoy it very much.
Fantastic. I'm starting to feel my stomach rumbling. Um, looks like we got a question in Q&A. Any chance of an Oma case experience? Omakase
Mm.
experience. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Any chance of an omakase experience in the future?
Yes, we are planning, as we reopen, a couple of ways. One's special dinner. Chef Moon has done a number of omakase dinners. Omakase means up to you, as in chef prepares whatever he deems proper. So often it's menu less, but our omakase, if it's a special dinner, we do give you some options. I'm not gonna just give you stuff that you're allergic to and make you sick or anything. So we give vegetarian options and whatnot. So that's one. The reason why the omakase on the menu has not been offered was we just been carrying less food items. So we just didn't have enough colors to work with in a form of ingredients. A couple months ago in our culinary team meeting, we discussed exactly that. And a restaurant at a time, starting with Grand Rapids location, we're reintroducing omakase items. And I hope that as our business increases, we'd like to offer the full omakase on the menu at all locations.
Fantastic. Well, that's run through all of my questions, and thank you guys for participating and sending in your questions as well. Thank you, Robert, for being here to answer them. It was really insightful to hear you talk about your experience, and thank you for being so open about like the mistakes that you've made in the past. I think it's a lot that people will be able to take away and really keep in mind as they're building businesses of their own. So I just want to close this by asking if there's anywhere that we can send people to and perhaps support you or reference material that you think would be good for them to look at.
Yeah, if any of you have any particular questions about the restaurant, or if any of the participants have passion for restaurant business, then I'll be glad to speak to you briefly about the validity or what one needs to do, or what I think one needs to do to successfully and open and operate a restaurant. You can send an email to robert@marusushi.com, and that's my email. And I will reply back, and perhaps we can get connected and try to assist you the best I know how.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Robert, for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, I hope to come by and visit sometime soon.
Okay, it's been my pleasure. Have a great evening, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.